All right, before the break, we built a small application and containerized it. Went through looked at the stages over the years. We have the installer version of our software, and then that was kind of replaced by containers. And currently CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous deployment, are a very popular way to get things out there. I was going to look at installers next week. I like to look at that at some point because it was never covered in a single programming related class that I took. Any course that even remotely mentioned programming, they never bothered to say what to do when the product's finished. Right? We don't give people source code to run. And it ended up taking me a little bit longer than it should have to try and figure that out from scratch. So I try to show that in just about every class I teach. I mentioned it beforehand. I looked at we briefly pulled up the Windows one I use. And we're going to look at this next week. But for Mac users, I know there's at least one in the class. So if you go to the Apple Store and search for Product Builder, this is the one I used. The price is gone last time I looked. It was $3.99 last time I looked, but it looks like it's $4.99 now. It covers your digital certificates and everything. This builds the PKG files. So you just kind of walk through a GUI, fill out a form, and then you hit build, and it builds the PKG and put your signature on it so that you don't cause security alerts and all that stuff. We're going to look at that next week, but I think most of the people in here are on Windows machines, so we're going to that final build does have to be done specifically for the machine. So if you wanted to build if your thing's cross-platform, you would build it on build the Windows installer on a Windows machine, then build a Mac installer on a Mac machine, and then if you want a Linux installer, like a .dev file, you'd have to build that on a Linux machine. That final build cannot be done cross-platform. So we'll probably look at a Windows one, but it's almost identical to this one right here. Labels are in the different spot, but it's just a form we fill out and it builds the package and signs it for us and everything. So just go to the Apple Store and look for Product Builder, and that's how you release the installers. Because even with the CI/CD pipeline, right? I pointed out that all we're really going to do there with our installer is install the URL where the software is at, so they can go grab the container, and it's generally set up so that virtual machine boots up in transit on the transport layer of the OSI model. Everybody have networking class. So layer 3 format in transit. We can format it so that it's in a different format by the time it gets to the end. So when it leaves GitHub, it's ready. It's a virtual machine that's ready, and when it arrives, it's a virtual machine that's been booted up. So little tricks like that, fancy things that we don't have to build because somebody else already built it. So all we have to do is ask for the code. And like when we looked throughout that text to speech stuff, more than one person spent their entire working career. So it was more than one generation to get that, but now we can get it. We can ask for it in a couple lines. We're not the ones that build it. People already put the effort into building it. So we're going to look briefly at installers. I got a little distracted. Sorry, I've been here since 7:30 this morning and just kind of distracted myself very suddenly. We got our application built, and you all have your projects. This is what's doing the project. And as far as the pipeline here, you do not have to create a pipeline for a finished product if your project is just crashing right now, and you throw it in a pipeline, that's fine as long as the pipeline works. As long as it sends me a version that crashes. As long as, it doesn't matter what's happening here, as long as this part works is all that I'm grading on this assignment. And this part is basically that Docker file, create that Docker file, and now we'll go upload this to GitHub. So here's our application from beforehand. We built the Python application. And our Docker file makes the container that makes the virtual machine. And we could install that directly, but instead of installing it, let's just leave this on GitHub and we'll install the URL to where this is. I'm gonna go over to GitHub. New one. Get a container. I'm just going to leave it blank so I can push it just right up. I'll copy that. And then I think it's still open in Sublime, isn't it? Yep. So git add dot, make sure everything's there. Git commit. But I couldn't think of a name very quick, so I'm just gonna write a random name in there. I'm not too concerned with the commit message. Y'all saw that message doesn't really matter. I think the reason it's the main reason that I ever pay attention to the message. I know I asked questions earlier in the quizzes about the convention and stuff. The main reason I ever pay attention to that is y'all have probably noticed that if we erase the commit message, then that's how we abort the commit. Otherwise, I don't hardly ever pay attention to the message. The number is what we need. So everything's in there. So git remote add origin to that one that was just created. Yeah, all projects are like that. A similar example of commit messages there.
That's one of the earliest ones I ever saw. I thought it was fun to say here.
Yeah, that looked like it was from XKCD.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. We come up with stuff that, yeah, this has been going for like 12 years. Like, come up with a new joke every day for 12 years. That's got to be exhausting. Where was it? Oh, yeah. So added the remote origin, git push origin main. Oops. And we should have that up on GitHub now. Nothing new there. We've seen that before, right? That was actually the part you've probably seen before this class. So there's no packages. We need a release or a package to come out of that. So I'm just going to publish it to packages. Releases have the same thing, but once it's up here, we go over to actions, and pretty much the only thing here is a Python file and a Docker file. Should have had git ignore the cache, because the cache is the compiled Python is going to be rebuilt as soon as somebody tries to run that program. So there's no point in saving that on the repository. The one on the repository is going to be deleted as soon as somebody tries to run the program. That's the sort of thing the git ignore file is for. But I'm going to ignore that. Just a reminder about those files. We really only want to pay attention to the ones that matter for our project. Okay, yeah, so it noticed right away that there's Docker image. This one does not put it anywhere. So it builds the image, but it doesn't do anything with it. So we have to add some code to this one. This one publishes it to packages, signed, but in order to sign it, we need a public key pair. We need asymmetric encryption. We need the GitHub has one key, we have the other, and they line up, as opposed to the other ones where both of us have the same key.
So if you've already established it, then that will work.
Yes, but right now, the only key GitHub knows about is our login one. And GitHub won't let us use our login credentials to sign a package, because then somebody else could figure out our login credentials.
Create a new.
So yeah, you just have to create a new key pair, right? Everybody had the SDEV 150 class on AWS, where AWS forces you to generate a key pair. You can generate a key pair like that, and GitHub can generate the key pairs, but it's better if any terminal can generate a key pair. Every machine on earth can generate a key pair. So just generate a key pair from somewhere and upload, if you have one of the keys and keep the other one for yourself. So if we use this one, we have to add some code to it. And if we use this one, for our purposes here in this class, we take code away. I think it's easier to delete the extra code and we just won't sign it. But it is not hard to generate a key pair and have it signed so that when afterwards, this would probably be the one you want anyway. We can do some editing. Cron is like the task scheduler. That's Linux version of task scheduler. When do we want something to happen? So this is gonna create a new one every day at 3:39 a.m. in the morning.
I noticed it's random because I got different numbers.
It is randomized. That way GitHub's not overloaded. It tries to randomize it. And if we all read up on numbers right now, you'd probably notice there's also not any during the typical working hours. And does anybody see any in the working day? Every once in a while it will, but it tries to not put them during what would be working hours. So that hopefully GitHub's being less. So it doesn't do it the 9 to 5. But I have seen the 3 in the afternoon before. So it's not extensively that, it's just, so it's not an if else, it's a probability. They add some probabilities, kind of like D&D dice. Right? Choose a number between 1 and 20 and then add some probabilities and try to avoid the middle of the day if they can. You can leave that there. I'm going to go ahead and take that out because, well, this one's going to be deleted before long anyway, but yeah. Don't need to write out a schedule. Push when a change when something pushes. So on, this is when we do stuff. We're going to do stuff when we push to the main branch, when there's a pull request to the main branch. We're making a CI/CD pipeline, so I'm going to get rid of the version tags because that's the thing the CI/CD pipelines finally got us away from. People always only get the latest version. There's no worry about users not running updates and then complaining when the program doesn't work because they didn't install the update that fixed a problem. I'm gonna skip. This one is where we install the signing thing, but installing it, that installs it on the server GitHub's going to spin up for us. This one, Ubuntu latest, the one that's building our package. So we installed some software there. It won't hurt to leave that. We could delete that paragraph, but the big one, could leave that stuff at the top if you want. But from line, if I hadn't deleted that stuff at the top, it would be line 84 on. But I already deleted some lines above, so it's line 80 on. I put a note in the instructions when I typed them up really quick today. Did say just go down to line 84 to the end and delete that. If you want to, you can delete other parts like where we install that software, but that last part is where we use that software, so it doesn't hurt to install it. We never do anything. Now we don't do anything with it. And I put 2 videos.
The other line you deleted? You deleted this schedule, and then what was the other one?
Oh, schedule, and then there were the tags. Let me go back. It had version number. So I took out the version number. So the schedule and the version number. And then this stuff at the bottom. But really you just need to take out this stuff at the bottom. That was the note I put in the instructions. I said from line 84 on. So it's line 84 before I deleted all that stuff. It looks like a paragraph. And then when we commit that, it should build everything for us. What's that?
I said, I don't know why I'm looking at that screen.
Yeah, you signed on. TVs are the habit. Well, I was doing that the other night. I kept looking up there after the power went off. That TV wasn't even on anymore. So it's probably building now. If I go back to the actions tab, yeah, it's small yellow, so it's waiting to go. So now it's yellow spinning, so it's doing stuff. It's building 5 seconds in. If we click it, we can watch it build. So you can see this isn't hard. We're not inventing this. It's already well established. It's something that happens a lot. We just ask for it. So that's all you need to do. Build your Docker file. And they click that button and I'm gonna say delete the last paragraph for the thing because I will ignore any messages that tell me that when I go to grade it and my computer tells me it doesn't know who wrote the computer, I will just completely ignore that message because I know who wrote the program. So I know it's good. And I can fix it if it messes anything up anyway. Well, week 7, I'm a week away from doing a factory reset, so it wouldn't hurt to mess up my machine right now anyway. Yes. And yeah, so if you would prefer the practice, instead of deleting that last line, you can just generate a key pair and put it on there. As you would expect, as you probably expect, there is no shortage of YouTube videos that show you how to do that. Those 2 that I put on there might show you how to generate a key pair and put it on there, but they explain all the lines in the YAML file really well. That's why I went ahead and included those. Oh, so it looks like it built. Now if we go over to code, we have this one under packages. So there's over on the right is packages. So this is what I'm grading on that assignment. I'm just gonna look to make sure there's something there. And then I'm gonna go run this line right here. Docker pull. This is what we install. So that would be the last thing in that batch file or PowerShell script that we actually install on the user's computer is this line right here. And then we just change out what that links to. That links to the latest build. And anytime we make a change, right, that's what was in that YAML file. In the workflows folder under YAML, when does this happen? Anytime we push to the main branch or anytime we make a pull request with the main branch. So we merge to the main branch. Even if the merge fails, we're going to do it at the pull request, not to confirm the merge. So even if a merge fails, we're still going to make a new version. So that's when that happens. And anytime we need to make a change, we just make it a side branch, push it over to the main branch, and no need for a new versioning number. Probably not a version number. No need for the new release or patch numbers to increment. We just have this URL, so we can copy that, come back over to Docker. Docker remove. Whoops. Actually, I need to remove the old one before I do that. Let me remove the old one. Oops. Yeah, there it is. Docker remove. Am I forgetting something? It's going to have a different name. I'll just go ahead and run this. I was going to remove the other one, but it's going to have a different name. It's going to be clear that it's not the one we're running. So we copy and paste that URL, and that's what we install. Right? We do a small script that makes sure Docker is installed. If it's a Windows machine and Docker's not installed, we will turn on WSL, switch over to an Ubuntu machine, which does happen right in PowerShell. If I go over to PowerShell and type Ubuntu, it switches to the Ubuntu virtual machine. I don't have to go to a different terminal like I did here. And then run that Docker sudo apt install docker.io, or if we're on a Mac or a Linux machine, we just run install docker.io and then this line. And that's all we need to install on the user's computer. That's why I was going to delete it. It already exists. So Docker does compare to see if it already knows it. It checks what's the current machines, uses any pieces off of those that'll work. It checks the cache, because Docker does the cache stuff, they cache the caches, like layers and layers and layers of caches. So it takes a long time before it's fully deleted. Your Docker machine remembers what it is. That way it doesn't have to download it again. So it goes through the layers of caches it has. And now, let's say Docker images -A for all. You see we have that other one. So this is where I like PowerShell because I can't really do it so well from this one. In PowerShell, this would be an object. In Bash, this is just a string. We can parse through that string and find the number. But in PowerShell, that would be an object, so it's an array. So we would just need that particular index. We'd need a two-dimensional array, so we would need index 1, 0, 1, 2. We would need index 1, 2 in order to get to that. That's why I like PowerShell. It's objects, not text. And we can actually do stuff with it. This is just a big string, but we could parse through that string and find the thing we want. A little bit trickier in Ubuntu, but still not bad. Everybody does know how to parse strings, right? How to find things in strings. And you only have to find it once. So now if we do Docker run from our interactive terminal, that FFBEBB, it's on a stack, so it's not that hard to find, but in PowerShell it's a two-dimensional array. And on Linux and Mac or command prompt, it's a string. So it's a little trickier to find in the string, but not that bad. And we get our code from there. I'll just do the changes right here. Read.py. This was just added this summer. I think I mentioned it here. We've had the edit button for years. We've had the little edit button so we can go in and edit files, cancel changes. But Microsoft just added this here, GitHub.dev. So the Electron framework, the thing that Microsoft just labeled as their own product and called VS Code. This is the actual full Electron framework. This is actually better than VS Code. There's things not available in VS Code that are available here. So this is back to the actual Electron framework and improvements made over what VS Code is. But since I know every one of y'all does use VS Code, you're familiar with what to do. Take VS Code, add functionality, and that's what we have here. You know where all the buttons are and everything. Maybe we want to do colon. What emojis do we have? Python emoji. So Python doesn't have all the emojis. I think I mentioned this before. Unicode, there's still thousands of artists adding emojis to that all the time. Python has 2 programmers down in Mexico City adding emojis to this, so they can't quite keep up with all of Unicode, but they're working on it. But so our list is a little shorter. We have these Carpe Diem 20.github.io. So the one that was due earlier this week, your GitHub pages, theirs is hosted on GitHub pages as well. Where we put the documentation. Where's something with a smile? Cat with Raya smile. I'm not cat. That's the only one? Okay, I'll do that one. I'm gonna add the cat with Raya smile emoji. Save that. And yeah, there's that button like I have in Sublime, so we can get back to get the branch stuff this way, get back to all our work. That's where the button is in VS Code. If y'all hadn't seen that one out, I kept clicking on the one on Sublime, which is over on the right, because I don't have VS Code installed on here. It's on the left. And this is great. This just came out this summer. Oh yeah, go to repository. So we've made some changes. Oh, I need to push those, don't I? So I'll click this button. Oh, cancel. Where's the add changes button?
The little
Just,
thingy right there, yeah. There's your quick commit and push.
oh,
Yeah, message, of course.
message. Wait, push. Okay, thank you. Nope, not that button. I just found the button over here. Go to repository. There we go. So now the main branch has changed. So over in actions, it's building a new version of our software. We don't have to push out version 1.0.2 now and hope that users install that patch to see the other little emoji in our message.
This opens the opportunity for micro updating too,
Yes. Yes.
which is actually probably a really big deal.
That's what a lot of people like. Is remember, a lot of programming is in-house programming, like Humana. All the programmers that work at Humana, they are making new buttons for the actuaries to dig through the database with. And they're tying together the database administrators with the actuaries to do the insurance company work. And they just change it out day after day after day. They make up new things, try different ideas, and just program constantly. Humana hires software developers more than could exist. Like hospitals hire nurses if you want to work for an insurance company. I wasn't going to throw that one out there. Of that last, if you want to work for an insurance company.
I worked for an insurance company.
Yum does as well.
I do know about Yum because I have a friend who works
Yes.
there.
Yeah, they will hire software developers to serve as intermediaries between the database administrators and everybody else. Because the database administrators will just send out tables. I'm like, yeah, here's the data. And so they need somebody in between them to put it on a nice GUI with buttons and things. And both of those companies here in Louisville will hire programmers the way hospitals hire nurses. As far as they're concerned, there's no such thing as enough.
I have to look into Yum. I didn't even think about that, but I do know somebody who works there, or at least did.
Yes, they have a rather large database. There's one 2 minutes ago. Our URL hasn't changed, so we still have that same URL. So we wouldn't have to go install the new URL. And when we try to run it, like it checks it, and it noticed there was changes. So if I were running that again, Docker images -a, and we got a new version. So copy that, Docker run -ti, the latest version. And there's our one with those updates went through as quick as we changed our code. We changed our code, and a few seconds later, anybody that runs the software sees that latest version. So we would run, then we install. This is the line we give to the end user.
Okay.
They grab the latest one, and then in a batch file or something, we grab this to pull this number out of there, and then throw that in there. I put it in a PowerShell script that's in the one that we did earlier in the semester, because in PowerShell script, that's a 2-dimensional array. Here, it's a string with tabs and line breaks. So we can split on the tab. We can split on the line feeds and then split on the tabs. Right? String dot split /n, and then once we have that, then loop all the way through there, do string dot split /t, and then we have a 2-dimensional array, but it's just 2 extra steps. It's only 2 extra steps. It's not many more. Then the next time somebody wants to run that software, whoops, not that. They're going to grab this, paste that in there, and Docker notices there's no change. I don't need to download anything. It's exactly like it was last time we were in. Or exactly like it was last time it was downloaded, so now just Docker images dash A. Grab the most recent image of it. And Docker run -ti paste. That's the advantages of CI/CD. If there's a new version, the user gets it. If there's not a new version, it runs the one they already have. And it's lots of very smart people put a lot of effort into that pipeline. The output of GitHub becomes the input on the terminal. So lots of very smart people put a lot of effort into that. So it is very, very, very optimized. There are alternatives to Docker, but Docker is by far the easiest. And you can see here, it can happen all in the background. We don't have to install Docker Desktop, but for your homework, probably just go with Docker Desktop. It's easier. Then you have a GUI you can click around on and see what's happening and stuff. Actually, a lot of computers probably have Docker Desktop. Anybody have any questions about that? Think y'all will be good for the homework this week? And yeah, it doesn't have to run. I'm looking at the pipeline, not the project. Yeah, and like this, it doesn't have to be a new terminal. If we type Ubuntu in PowerShell, it goes to there. If I open command prompt, I think it does as well. If I go to command prompt and type, I'll do Kali Linux this time. Or Ubuntu. Okay, yeah, apparently Kali Linux isn't the name, but whether it's in PowerShell or command prompt, once WSL is installed, I can just jump right over to an Ubuntu. I can just jump right over to the virtual Ubuntu machine. They're tied together. So that's how we would set up that installer. This is the part on your homework though. You just send me the link to the home page. Which actually I think I already have the link to everybody's repository, don't I? The group, yeah, I've seen both groups repositories. So yeah, really just get it on there, and even if you don't submit it, I'll still go check whenever I get around to grading it. Whenever the other group submits one, I'll check yours too, probably. But really, really easy, and the Docker file is going to be most of the work for containerizing it. Which, if you like the versioning method, or at some point in the future, the versioning method will probably go back to the containers before we go all the way back to this. So transitioning as far as what's better, what's preferred in the industry is going to probably be back and forth between those two until something else comes out. Because some people do really like the versioning number. They don't want to push out every change because sometimes accidents happen when we make changes. Right? If we accidentally commit to the main branch instead of a side branch, that's going to push out the wrong release. And then fixing that's a different issue. So a lot of people do like the containers because there's a delay there, or at least manually do that so that it's not automated. So the pipeline is there, but it's like put on a button or something, so that it's not just an automated process. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, and just a reminder, or a point to express like use cases. What we've been looking at with Git this semester is things that we would probably use as software developers in the applications we're developing. I don't think anybody's group project really has a save button, but some of your personal projects would have a save button, right? Sam's, yours, yeah, you definitely want to save your medical information to give to the nurse practitioner. Mateo's, you're scraping all that information. You're gonna have a save button. So instead of just when you do save, add in some Git functionality, and the end user doesn't have to see all the Git stuff because you can put a different label there. So you have save, and then you have save previous version. So you have like different branches or different commits. And if a user wants to get back to the one from 3 days ago, the Git functionality is worked right into your save button. That's the use case of where this stuff would show up. Not necessarily in the terminal like we've been learning it also. Take those commands and we put those in our applications. That's a bit of a project, but it's the logic to that makes sense.
Yes.
If you all see how to do that, yeah, just add those commands to your add those to your save button, and then you have versioning in whatever software you're in. I'm a CI/CD pipeline, so that you have control over the configuration, not the user. That's the big problem. There's other options out there too. This isn't the only one. These are just the most popular two. But that original one was a big problem because when the user has control over the configuration, we can't trust our users, basically. Don't trust the users with the configurations on your software. You're the one that knows what's going on. So that went a few minutes longer than I was wanting to. So we saw how to do that. Next week, I want to look at the installers though, whether it's the traditional format, the containers, or the thing we just saw where we'd install that URL. We are going to install something on their computer. I like to show that in every class because it was never shown in any programming class that I took. We always write source code and it's like, yeah, great job, here's your grade. And nobody ever even mentioned what to do when it was finished. So that's part of the reason I'm making a big deal out of CI/CD pipelines, on the pipelines, because
I think I've only actually made an executable file once in last 20 years.
Yeah.
Roughly. I've done it one single time where I actually made a program and went that far with it.
So, but that's something we want to do. We want to finish the program. Once we're finished, we don't give user source, well, we give Linux user source code. I like to make an installer for Linux, but that's just a sign for Linux users that it was tested on Linux. They want the source code. That's why they're on Linux. But it's
That's how you troll a Linux user, give them an executable.
yeah. We want to see how to, I want to show how to make those. I try to show it in every class because that did leave me a little bit frustrated. And there was a couple points that I didn't realize at first. That took a lot longer to figure out than they should have, but I can tell it to you in one sentence and it'll make sense and an easy way to remember. We'll see that next week. We'll probably look at a Windows machine. I know T is on that software that I just pointed out right after the break. That's the one I'll use, and it's almost like it's very, very, very similar to the one we're going to look at for a Windows machine. But the build, the installer build, has to be done on that type of machine. We can't cross-platform and build. See that next week. Anybody have any questions about stuff for this evening? I'll give it a couple seconds.
Nope.
All right. You all have a great weekend. Remember, the final exam opens Sunday at midnight and closes at Saturday, which isn't everything else to do on Sunday next week. But remember, exams are on a different schedule. It's the same question bank as the weekly quizzes. So you've seen all the quizzes. Oh, I will go through all of them that have been taken and put points back on so you see which ones might have had typos and stuff in there. I haven't done that since midterms. So I will put points back on so you see which points you're still going to get on the quiz. Otherwise, you've seen the question banks. Y'all have a great weekend. I will see you on Tuesday and we'll look at installers.